Thank you, Chairman. Thank you, Ambassador, for your testimony today.
Thank you.
And I think your time during your service during this president's tenure, I think, has been one of the more moderating voices on what I consider to be some of their more outlandish moves. But I think it's also put folks like yourself and Secretary Tillerson in a box sometimes. And so I want to ask you a question that I've been asked many times by the foreign ministers, ambassadors, members of parliaments that I've met with since President Trump took office, which is who reliably speaks for the president in the foreign policy space?
So we work very much as a team, and the team works strongly. We have, in our NSC meetings, I have a great relationship, and we talk through things with Tillerson, Mattis, McMaster. We have Kelly, and I mean, everybody there. That group is the main group in General Dunford. Those are the main people. Pompeo is another important one. We go through all aspects of everything when it comes to dealing with that. So it really is a...
So there is a process in place that...
And a very organized process in place. General McMaster has done a fantastic job, and all of our voices are heard, and all of us get to help push that decision.
Do you feel as though the president takes your advice?
I think that the president, you know, then General McMaster has to do that. I think the president does. He's turned out to be a very good listener in terms of the fact that he wants to learn and he appreciates different viewpoints, and then he makes his decision.
Well, I guess probably the most glaring example or problematic example that I've seen was when Prime Minister Netanyahu came for a joint press conference, and the idea of a one-state solution rather than a two-state solution was broached. I believe Tillerson was on a plane somewhere, was not present, and then the next day you had to come back and basically say, no, our approach is still a two-state solution. And then the president later said, well, it's really whatever the parties want to do.
Right.
So you can imagine around the world that people start wondering, who's speaking for the president?
Well, and in fairness to everybody involved with that, the president has very much felt like we don't need to push what the solution is between Israel and the Palestinians, that we need to have them come to the table and make those decisions. So his point was, if they come up with a one-state, if they come up with a two-state, whatever they come up with, we're going to support. And the way it got out, I agree with you, the communication was weird, but that was his intention. So we knew very much that he wasn't giving up on a two-state solution. He just was saying whatever they come up with, we will support. And if that's a one-state solution, we'll support that too.
Well, and then I guess a more recent example is the example of Qatar, where the president was essentially praising the blockade. And at the same time, because we have a base there and other interests, we seem to be, other parts of our foreign policy apparatus seem to be coming to the defense of Qatar. Again, there seem to be at least two heads there. What happened on that issue? It's
a complicated issue. And like I said, I've given my opinion. I think there's an opportunity to hit both sides and try and get more of what we want. Qatar has been funding. We know that they have done a lot with Hamas as we're dealing with Gaza and some other areas. And so I think the president really does want to push out ISIS, push out terrorism, and his whole point of going and making that first visit was to say, we've got to get rid of all of these threats that we have. So when this came up with Qatar, his focus was very much on the funding they were doing for terrorists, and I think that we have an air base there. Yes, there's some ties, but he sees the priority is getting rid of ISIS and getting rid of terrorism as right there at the top.
And then finally, because I just have about 50 seconds left, I'm on the Western Hemisphere Subcommittee, and Venezuela, of course, is a big issue. I know you've probably fielded a question from Albiocitas perhaps on it, but what is your outlook for Venezuela and for the region?
It's worse than what we're seeing on TV. It's in a very bad place. And what I had said before was, you know, we did an emergency session in the Security Council. They weren't happy with that. They felt like it needed to go to the Human Rights Council, but we still had it. We went to the Human Rights Council. You know, the reason they have not brought it up, which they need to, is because Venezuela sits on the Human Rights Council, and so we blasted them on that. We were banking on OAS doing something. That didn't happen. This needs to be on our radar. Maduro is leaning more and more towards using military force and weapons, And I think that this is something that is only going to get worse before it gets better, and we need to make sure that we're watching this carefully and do something about it.
Thanks for your service.
Thank you.